Looks like it's going to be SLR. That's why.
You're late. You want to get started? Start.
Okay, we'll get the City of Saratoga Springs work session called to order tonight on Tuesday, March 27th, 2018, and we'll stop yelling at 6:01 p.m. Last week we couldn't get the mic loud enough. This week, definitely loud. Okay, first on the work session tonight is fiscal year 2019 draft budget.
Also, we provided you with all the options that were reflected, and also the ones, the options that were approved. We were able to balance the budget. And
Oh, I was just looking at you.
We talked earlier today, and my only thing was maybe if you could add those other reports that we talked about, just so we can get a complete picture of the financial state of the city. I know that they don't necessarily deal with the budget, but it's helpful.
I didn't have a chance to reply via the email, but I would like to have a time set up. That'd be great, just to go over it and answer any questions. Thank you.
Any further questions? Or
I was just wondering why the attorney's office needs more office supplies. I mean, that seems pretty. But no, I didn't have any questions.
You're on the daily airplane.
How did you know?
okay, that was painless.
Well, we're just getting started, that's why.
Wait till next week.
Well, we're 2 months into looking at this.
Yes. So again, part of it was we wanted to get all the requests in front of you so you could be looking at it. Since we don't have a meeting till April 17th, we figured now would be a good time to spend some one-on-one time with you and work through any questions or concerns, and then adjust as we continue to move forward. Thanks.
Okay, and then we have item 2, the mixed residential zone.
Evening. So we're going to talk about kind of both the mixed, a little bit interchangeable. So I will sort of go back. Today, the mixed residential zone. So just a little bit of background. Laughlin, the North Shore started out as the Laughlin was it's bouncing around for last year, so about a year. Applied for annexation, tested by Lehigh, sat around a while, then determined by Lehigh. So McLaughlin there. It was with 3 other annexations. That's actually board. Laughlin, however, didn't because that was his own property, and there was some discussion about zoning all of the little pieces. And then looking at it, not the way they wanted to go, but they really wanted.
Oh, I thought it was on, sorry. I'll email it all to you, so you'll be able to see it, but I kind of wanted you to understand the context within which I drafted it before you went headlong into it, because you'd be going, what the heck is this? So just a little bit of background. So if you keep going, NP? It's a neighborhood plan, yeah, and we'll all talk about that in a sec. So we added to the standards tables, also to the use tables, if you can keep going. So it's added to the use tables, and it allows as conditional uses some types of daycare, senior facilities, some things that would normally be kind of in the neighborhood. Some of them are permitted uses, some of them are proposed to be conditional uses. This is the separate chart just for the mixed use zone. And then if you want to go toward the very end. So what I did in the very end is added a section to this chapter that says mixed residential zone specifically, purpose and intent. And the way it works is it would be a zone that we could apply to any vacant piece of property or whatever. So it's not like a planned community zone where they'd have to come in before they get a zone change. They would have to come in with a plan, and the zone change is to planned community, and then it's based upon this community plan. This zone is intended so that if you wished, we could apply it to a piece of property. And then when they developed it, they would have to come back in and provide a neighborhood plan which would meet the standards that they're outlined. So that's kind of the thinking. We didn't want to get too specific about what the neighborhood plan, how it was formatted, and exactly what little pieces of information in order to provide flexibility in the way it was applied, and for different developers have different ideas. D.R. Horton certainly has a formula that they use that seems to work, and it would allow for that, but if another developer has a formula that achieves the same thing, they would be able to move forward with their own scheme. So if we go through, there's just some sort of intent. It would be memorialized in development agreement. We have talked about, if you want to go down, Dave, we talked about a maximum blended density of 12 units per acre. The D.R. Horton originally talked about 14, but we sort of looked at all of our zones as a staff and recommend 12. Process would be Planning Commission has a public hearing and makes a recommendation to you on the neighborhood plans. And then you'd have a shot at the plats, just like you do today, whatever that process is. So submission requirements, we try to standardize them as much as possible, but it does require some special things like a theming plan, street naming plan, general architectural theme. The whole idea is that a neighborhood should be cohesive. So all of the elements should tie into that theme. So the open space should tie into that theme. The architecture should tie into it, so that it really looks like a community. A minimum size for the community would be 50 acres, if you want to keep going. These are just all the things that are needed as a part of the neighborhood plan. Then in terms of development standards, we would ask for a lotting plan as part of the neighborhood plan. Basic street network information like we do today, if you want to keep going down, Dave. Rear lanes is not something that we have addressed elsewhere in our code, so I added language about that. Open space, we've referred to 1919, which is our open space, the section of our code right now, which has a table. You have to have a minimum amount based upon your use type, like the number of houses you're going to, lots. And then you have to meet a certain number of points that you can get by, different amenities have different point values. And initially, D.R. Horton was really uncomfortable with that. I think we're getting toward the place where we're more comfortable with it. Certainly the amenities chart doesn't hit everything that anybody could do, and we would try to liken what they're going to do to similar kinds of things in the chart. Architectural standards, again, trying to emphasize place and continuity, four-sided architecture if necessary. Landscaping and fencing, we refer to the landscaping requirements and the fencing requirements, but add some language, if you want to keep going. Building height, we're talking about a maximum of 45 feet, but that a variety would be provided. There's a thing that allows for a little bit extra height if it's for an architectural feature and doesn't result in additional square footage, but is an architectural feature, just to provide some creativity in design. Support uses right now, we say that, you know, they could go there. It basically leaves it in the hands of the applicant to decide if they want to put it there or not. But I'm really looking for some guidance on that. And then improvements required. So what I want to hear from you folks is how you want to deal with the fact that this might be, and we want to encourage a transit stop, whether it's BRT, shorter term, or tracks or something, longer term. And associated with that, how do you want to deal with the commercial element? Do you want it required? Do you want it optional? Is there some, you know, reservation of parcels that you want so that in the future we could look at something? And if so, how would we do that? The applicant is pretty concerned about that, and they will voice that to you tonight, I'm sure. So I wanted to give them an opportunity to talk a little bit, and then I want to get your feedback as to what direction you think we should go.
If you want, you can take a seat and we'll ask questions as we go too.
We're glad to be here tonight. Opportunity. Nope, sorry, and I didn't state my name. Chriselle Travis, D.R. Horton. And we think that there are things, as she said, that are still in draft form. We are getting more comfortable with some of the things that they've proposed. There's still a lot of things to refine, but I think that we can get to a point where everything works for both parties, and we can move forward and get this annexation and everything complete. We, again, want to hear your input on what, the same as her, so that we can get this done and moving forward as quickly as possible. You guys have anything else?
Okay. Councilman Podeska?
Can you come back to me? I was looking something up real quick.
Okay. Councilman Porter?
Well, it's hard to speak to any specifics because we just saw it. So as far as the commercial, I mean, we already have a mixed-use zone which requires commercial, so I kind of see the whole point of this, in my mind, was for it to be solely residential. I know that we've talked about commercial with your specific project. If that's the case and we want to continue down that road, which I personally would like to see, but I would just say we would zone that area as commercial, you know, either neighborhood commercial or community commercial, and just have it zoned commercial and then zone the rest of it as this mixed residential. I don't know. I guess some of the concern, I wasn't in the meeting with Councilwoman Barsh, but I know that some of the concern might be like the idea of having like the flex space on the first floor. So I don't necessarily know how to address that if we want that right along the transit corridor.
You know, that would be one sort of alternative to address a future, I mean, it's sort of a chicken and the egg thing, right? We don't want to preclude any opportunity if a transit stop goes there for us to have commercial uses.
Right.
But, you know, here we are today knowing that that probably won't happen for quite a number of years. So how do we balance that? And that's the real question. They have proposed the possibility of some of the townhome units. The first floor would be a flex space that could be converted to commercial. You know, then you have other things arise. You need to figure out how do you deal with parking and all of that. We dealt with this in Salt Lake City when I was there, when we decided to along the transit lines, go in and change all our zoning to allow higher density, we really wanted to encourage retail on the first floor. Well, the numbers of people aren't there yet for the first floor retail to be attractive, so what do? And we, what we finally came to is we worked to have that be flex space, so maybe it's a gym for the apartment building and a common area room in the sales office or the rental office or whatever, but have it be of sufficient size and construction so that it could be changed to retail in the future. Now, I don't know what's going to happen 5 years in the future when all those apartment people are used to having their amenities, to then take those away and put in commercial. I don't know. I think it's going to be a little bit of a battle. But, you know, it's a thing that a lot of people struggle with is the commercial's not going to go until the residential, you know, until there's enough people, bodies living there.
Right.
But you don't want to preclude opportunities.
Well, I like allowing commercial as an option. But, you know, I mean, you want to have some sort of safeguards so that it's, you know, we don't want the uses that you would see in that first floor commercial in 10 years or whatever, aren't necessarily ones that we want permitted in the rest of the neighborhood. So we'd have to figure out how to cordon that off, but maybe the neighborhood plan can address that. I don't.
Well, and we've looked, it's not like we haven't heard the message that commercial is wanted and needed. We've worked with partners and talked to partners. We've hired consultants and had them look at this area. As it stands today, we can't get anyone to bite on the commercial, but we totally get your concern.
Yeah.
And like she said, it's a valid thing. We want to see the future, but we can't predict it.
Right.
And it's the chicken and the egg. We're here today. The houses need to come so commercial can come. There are surrounding properties that in your general plan are zoned for commercial spaces. Now they're not right on your tracks corridor if it becomes the tracks corridor at some point in time.
Right.
But we're really trying to strike the balance that would work for both of us. And I believe that what she's proposed with the allowed uses, we're comfortable with.
Okay.
And the options, the way that it's written now.
Okay. There was something else you wanted us to speak to besides the commercial aspect. What was?
Just if we're heading.
I think, okay, I think this is the general direction I was envisioning when this was brought up, so.
Councilman McComber?
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize, I do have a cold, so if I have to stop for a second, I will try and mute my microphone in time. So for me, I think this is a much needed zone for our city. We got rid of the PUD zone, and there was reasons because the PUD was very flawed in many ways, and we're still dealing with the remnants of PUD, and whenever there's a problem, it's typically because of the PUD. That being said, I want to make sure we do this right. So I appreciate the work session opportunity here, appreciate you coming in and participating and being a developer participant in this zone. I think it's important to point out that this zone is not just going to be for D.R. Horton. Once we open this can, I have a very strong inclination that this is going to be popping up a lot more, especially in these 50 to 75 acre developments where the planned community just doesn't make sense. And we didn't want the planned community to be as smaller, and we have a limit on that for a reason. So with that being said, I think it's important that and I appreciate your guidance and feedback from a developer's perspective, but I also want to make sure that we're putting something in place that's going to keep to the vision and goals of the city going forward across the whole city, and not just this very unique location with the transportation potential corridor. That being said, I just wanted to lay that foundation. I am a property rights guy. At the same time, we want to make sure we protect the existing and current properties owners here in Saratoga Springs. So I'm in favor of this being optional for commercial. And I believe that in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, if there's a real need, and I don't think that D.R. Horton would shy away from even changing a building if it was financially viable for them, because they're obviously know how to make money. And so I think that if we want to, if you come back and say, hey, we really would like to, now we have the huge parking lots because of the track stop, and we have plenty of parking opportunities, and we like to have a coffee shop, and we like to do some of these things, come to us. And you'd have that option available. My concern with making something required is blight, empty facilities. The last thing I want is just potential for crime, different things if things are empty, if you don't have the bodies in a commercial area. For me, in terms of the direction, I think, again, this is, I sort of said at the beginning, I think this is definitely the right direction. We need to have something like this. I'm a little bit concerned with the 12 being sort of like, almost like the minimum. I would rather us have a lower number, and then in your situation, because of transportation and things, allow this council and future councils to allow when someone's coming in up to 12. Does that make sense? And so I have no problem with 12 in this situation. It makes sense. You're not going to want to put a 3rd-acre home backing onto a tracks line. You'll never sell that lot. Even if it doesn't come for 15 years, people are still not going to buy that lot, unless they're just ignorant. But I would hope, and I think that we've already talked about making it clear in your plotting and in the closing documents that potential corridor, and I think that's already been discussed. And I have no concern that you wouldn't want people to know that. Another thing I wanted to point out too, and I apologize, I'm a little more random than normal, but the Legacy Farms development that you have done has been very well received by the residents of Legacy Farms. The only real concerns we've already talked about, and I've been very impressed with D.R. Horton's efforts to come back and sort of rectify some of the concerns with trees, maybe some architectural differences. When you realize that maybe we didn't catch everything, I've been impressed with your willingness to revisit instead of just, no one saw it, and I just, that to me is a partnership. And I want to make sure that we keep that going forward, because I think this development too can be very much loved by the residents within it and the residents surrounding it if we can catch some of these things. But I'm encouraged knowing that if we don't, that we have a developer who is willing to rectify mistakes that are made by both parties. So with that being said, I would like to see potentially the number being lower with an option for the council. And I already indicated because something that's sort of landlocked down at the end, there's no real transportation, doesn't really make sense to have it be 12, right? But at the same time, a project comes in over by the Mountain View Corridor Freeway coming through, and it's 65, 70 acres, then yeah, it probably makes sense there as well. So giving the future councils the option versus saying it's almost like the minimum, we're almost like telling them you have to put 12 units to the acre in, and that's concerning. Obviously, the tables will have to have a lot more scrutiny. I'm not going to even go there. Councilman Podeska found something, I'm going to leave it to him, because he saw something that's, we all sort of went, what? But I'm going to let him, that's his. But obviously, we have to review those tables pretty extensively. This is a work session, we don't have time today, and I don't want to do that today, but I absolutely would like to have some real scrutiny, because to the people here in the audience, that's the rights. That's like saying, you now have this right, and it cannot be taken from you. And I think that's very important. We want to make sure that we're giving the rights that are appropriate, and we're also protecting the city where it's appropriate. So with that being said, I'm very excited for this. I think it's something that's needed. Looking forward to this project. And to think that we're maybe winning over the higher-ups at D.R. Horton about the nautical theme. And so I'm hoping, because I was like, we were in the meeting and we were really pushing that, and I just think that you have such a huge opportunity here to still play on your, the themes that you have in the city, so people know it's a similar product, but really create a wonderful feel for the community. I think that your sales will do really, really well, just with just the branding and the theming alone.
That's the next item.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
We're on it.
Thank you, and
Thank you.
just to clarify, Yeah, this is just an introduction.
Yep.
We're giving you the information, I'll email it to you, but I didn't want to give it to you cold without some background. So in terms of timing, the Planning Commission, they had a similar work session. I've already heard from, well, one of them, with some comments. And I expect to hear from others. It will be on their April 12th meeting, and the hope is that there will be a recommendation made at that point in time, and then you would see it on April 17th. There are lots of other pieces that have to happen that I'll talk about, kind of transitioning from this project to the specific project. Because there's some other things that have to happen. But that was the intent. It's not, you know, I didn't really think you'd be able to speed read it and give me all the feedback. But I just sort of wanted you to understand
the general direction I'm
context.
pleased with, tables review as a group, general direction's great. I just cringed a little bit on that minimum 12 almost, and so
Okay, that's good to
I think
know.
that was one of the first things that caught my attention. But absolutely, I think in this situation, it's perfectly validated. And I'm done. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
And I don't think that it reads a minimum of 12, it's a blended overall density of 12. So I've got acreages that I'm proposing that are 20 to 30 to the acre, but over my whole project, I will not exceed 12 units.
And I would like to see that lower, and then we will allow up to 12 blended for other developments. Just some areas I just don't want to see as dense.
So some kind of a tiered
Right.
based on location. Okay,
Next to Nancy, you can go.
gotcha.
Something,
Six
just some
or
kind
eight,
of, for the
right.
future councils, that they have some kind of say.
Right.
It's not, they're not like,
Because if we allow, to your point, if we allow 12, every developer will come in asking for 12.
Yep, true.
But I'm not.
and they,
I know.
so
But every other
you understand.
I do, yep.
Okay. Councilman Wilden.
I think similar comments on the 12. I know it reads maximum, but some people just skip that and they see 12 as long as we round to 12, even if that's including down. I mean, that's something we've consistently seen, but from my standpoint, whatever a lower number, but if there's other considerations, and you'd have to think through that, Nora, if maybe it's extra open space or other incentives that creates an easy adjustment from 8 or 10 or whatever that may be up to the higher level. And I can think of a few things that are already being done right now that could fall within that category. But as soon as this goes out, I agree, we're going to have a lot of requests for 12 units per acre. And in some cases, it may make sense. Some cases it wouldn't. But one of the things is creating incentives in there that if people are going to go for the 12, it really is a good benefit for the city. Maybe it's additional amenities or open space. Similar on commercial, if there is commercial elements added. And I have a little bit different perspective, I think, than Councilman Porter on this is, to me, this is kind of the PC light, which allows for commercial, and if we're doing a light version of this, I'd like to see an optional commercial element in there that if it is done, that's an incentive for more units. So if we're doing a PC light, I know that I'm thinking of future developers or whatever, but for me, if we're trying to mirror that but on a smaller scale and memorialize it, I'd like to see that commercial element optional. Otherwise, I don't want to do block zones. Okay, we're going to do houses here, but right in the middle, we're going to do a zone for commercial or something like that. And and I think if it's optional, I'd like to see in the code incentives. Doesn't relate to you guys, but because you're doing other things, open space, transit lines and things, but for other developers, incentives if they add a commercial element, maybe that's something that could be considered to get them from above.
Good idea.
Like an 8 to go to 12, commercial helps them.
Yeah, there's like a maximum, then ultra maximum, and then don't ever ask. Right?
That's a good.
So that's my main things. Otherwise, I think most of the things are, I don't have any, make sense. So.
Councilman Porter, Michael's built this up for a big reveal moment here. Oh, sorry, Podeska. I got the P's at each end.
All right, no, I appreciate that. Let's see, yeah, so really quick, just on the table, it's concerning to see 10 inches separation of
10 inches, yeah, that
buildings.
would be a little close.
I think
the
Chief
one that
Campbell would
says
be a little
3 inches.
upset about that one.
Yeah.
We were joking about the lawnmower.
Yeah.
Scissors.
So yeah, so I want to echo the commercial aspect of making it optional, but having incentives built into that, I like that option there. One of the things that why I was delayed a little bit at the beginning is I was pulling up a map here and just seeing how close that future marina is going to be. And so I think for this development, I'm still really leaning towards that first level of commercial. I know there's not companies that want to come into that yet. So as an option, instead of doing like amenities for the apartments, I know there's just a huge need for office space. And so for professional office space, that could be leased out there. And then as commercials come in, because being next to that marina, I just see a really good need for a commercial close to that marina, whether it's a bait shop or whatever it is. But yeah, so just having that available, again, Trax will also bring that in the future. But just once we build something, we're not really going to tear it down, in 30 or 40 years to then build something. So that's just kind of where I'm leaning towards on that. And yeah, there's nothing else to add.
Okay. Anything else, Nora?
Do you have anything else?
These guys pretty much summed it up, I think, with how we balance it out, or that's what's just not a given, depending on the property.
All right, so let's transition into the development itself. So in order for, and Dave, in that file, there's perfect. Transition into a discussion about the North Shore development itself. So as I mentioned, with a few tweaks, it would fit into the MR zone, the mixed residential zone, but there are a number of other things that have to happen before it becomes something. First of all, the property has to be annexed into the city, so there would have to be an annexation agreement. And theoretically, you would vote on that. Well, you would vote on that at the same time that the annexation comes into the city. It has to, when the annexation comes in, you have to zone it, which is why we've been working on the mixed residential zone. If everything goes as, ideally, it would come in, the annexation agreement, we'd zone it mixed residential because we'd have that zone on the books. And then the McLaughlin property contains property that's already in our city limits. It doesn't need to be annexed. And so what would have to happen is D.R. Horton would need to file an application for a rezone so that it rezones it from agriculture to the mixed residential zone. It would be generally consistent with our general plan, but they would have to do that as well in order to make this happen. And then they would have to move forward and actually make an application for a neighborhood plan. So that we have a little bit more information about what the things they've been talking about already, about their variation in lot types. So Mike just sent me this a little bit. Part of the idea with the annexation, the development, is that there's a 19-acre parcel down by the lake that has a little kind of a beginnings of maybe a little marina or something. And the proposal would be to donate that to the city in exchange for some probably impact fee, open space impact fee credits, recreation impact fee credits or something, and open space credits. That all needs to be negotiated as part of the annexation. We would then get ownership of that. It could be developed partially as commercial if the city decides at some point in the future, if we wanted to do like the bait shop or paddle boards or whatever, or it could all be, it just depends on what the council at the time wants to do with it, but that's part of the plan. The development itself has a fair amount of open space and a fair number of amenities within the development itself, so I don't think they're going to have a problem meeting the open space requirement, either the amount or the amenities that they propose. Their lot right now, we all presented to you and kind of told you the different product lines that they were thinking about, and I'll turn it over to these folks in a minute. But they've been doing some market research, and already some of their ideas are starting to change a little bit. And there may be fewer apartments and more of another kind of product. They're still looking at about the same density, as far as I know. But
Big smile for me on that comment.
But all those details would happen at the neighborhood plan stage. And still in a neighborhood plan, we'd want to allow some flexibility with, as the market changes. Because we all know, even a development that their build-out may be 5 or 7 years, the market can change a lot.
Their build-outs are
potentially.
like 19 months. So, I'm just sorry, I'm just giving you a hard time.
So we, you know, we want to provide some flexibility for that to happen as well, recognizing that things change. So I don't know if you folks want to say anything else?
So this would have been. Sorry. Hold on. So this would have been the concept that we would have moved forward if you guys were adopting our language. You can go to the next one. The lotting plan is similar to what you've seen in the 2x2s that we've done. We're still proposing the same number of products: apartments, townhomes, 3-story, 2-story, cottage lots, small single-family ownership as well. So it's very similar in product. This map shows you the open spaces that are available. We will be able to stand with 20% on our own, not counting the harbor donation. So we feel like we've got ample open space, and we'll be providing a great community, just similar to Legacy Farms. We have taken into consideration your nautical theme. And so these would be the changes that you would see to get our clubhouses. This is very conceptual right now, but we wanted you to know that we've listened, that we've heard you, and we're working towards that. We're working those into our open space. Part of this neighborhood plan that would come with the MR zone would be a character and theme plan. Part of what we wanted to accomplish is give the city a purpose for using this zone, right? It's different than if I just came in and did a small single-family home development. We want a purpose. So this character and theme plan would play into our open spaces, our architectures. The whole master plan would work together and give it a good feel and be an asset to the community. But other than that, that's all we've got. So if you've got any feedback on any of our products or our lotting plan that you've seen, that's what we'd like to hear.
Comments from the council that they have?
So I can go
Councilman Comber?
I'm going to be quick. I'm glad to see this. I think that looks really good from a concept. I love the shutters. That's very East Coast feel. The Widow's Peak kind of Widow's Walk up there, up at the top. Again, hopefully it would even be accessible. That'd be fun if there's like a spiral staircase up to there, and because it's going to have some great views. Maybe of a island of houses in the middle of the lake, but who knows? So,
Michael, on that,
Yeah.
I think if there's access, then you have to provide ADA access and stuff like that. So I think it's going to be more of a design element rather than a functional lookout. Is that a correct statement?
Probably.
Because we don't want to put an elevator up to just that.
okay.
That's a bummer.
That's a bummer.
Predicted that on the water tower too, though, and we haven't had any problems.
That you know of.
I didn't realize that private properties of a private HOA had the same ADA requirements that a city building or a business corporation would have. That's interesting to see, because technically I don't have an elevator in my house, so my upstairs is not ADA compliant.
Right.
And so it'd be interesting to see, because this is a private HOA. Again, I think that property rights also need to be taken into consideration, but of course we want to be ADA compliant where we need to be. And I know there's some certain planning commissioner members who will be really hard on that, but I just wanted to throw that out there. I think that ultimately what it comes down to, and I even love the logo that you come up with, the North Shore. Again, it plays well with your ongoing themes. Have fun with it. I know you guys are excited about it, and know that that kind of plan coming forward for me helps me get excited about some of these densities when I know that we're going to have good open space, the open space is going to be themed, that we're going to have that same nautical type feel. You know, I specifically went on the Legacy Farms neighborhood page, Facebook page. I'm a member of that, and I asked a couple people, like, just sort of threw it out there for people to respond. They love their unique play equipment. The fact that it's not just typical, here's a metal slide, like everything, the rope swing, the tunneling, and just the things that make you feel like you're almost living on a farm. And I think that was what you were going for. So congratulations. Have the same kind of creativity with this as well from a nautical perspective. So thank you.
Okay. Any other council comments?
I just, I like, you know, going back to the two ways of doing it. I like this lotting plan much better than the blocks of color. This is a little bit easier for us to really visualize. We've never been fans of the big blocks of color that get brought to us. And, you know, and to clarify my comments earlier, the commercial block I was talking about was actually, I guess, is on the land that's going to be dedicated to the city, was down here by the marina. That was kind of what I wanted zoned as commercial. So that, you know, I guess somewhere along the line I'd forgotten that that whole property was coming into the city and that we would be the ones developing it if it gets developed in the future.
And I would agree. That's where I would like that.
Yeah, because I think at the marina, that's where you're going to want to see something along those lines. But yeah, I mean, in general, I think that given this location next to a transit corridor and next to a regional recreational amenity, and because of those considerations, you know, I'm willing to entertain a slightly higher density than we might prefer otherwise. But I think in general the plan looks good, and you know, hopefully we can move forward with this. So,
okay. Councilman Wilden.
I don't know why I didn't realize this before, but the Public Works building is right there. So if you're putting apartment buildings, that probably makes sense to have them down by the Public Works. No offense to Jeremy, but
he's saying you're not a good neighbor, Jeremy.
We're looking for affordable housing for some of our employees.
They can walk to work.
Walk to work.
But, you know, I think we saw like some level concept of this last year. You know, one of the questions that's asked to me is, would you consider annexing something in with a higher density? And the answer is yes, if there's a big benefit to the city. Now, I don't get super excited for a tracks line. I don't like riding tracks downtown. I drive. But it actually, from a long-term perspective, that is a big benefit to the city from a transportation perspective. I mean, I don't get super excited about it, but it is important. And then the marina with the commercial block. So, I mean, that's why I think Councilman Porter was talking a little bit about that. But that's, for me, that's why we're looking at this, is there is a good long-term value to existing residents that are farther west. It'll get transportation to them in a park and potentially some commercial up there. And staying in our city, we get to have some say in it versus if it went.
Okay. And just real quick, so going back to my previous comments, I had also forgotten about that southeast parcel that is being dedicated for that marina area. And so I think the commercial, it does make more sense to be in that area. So as far as, yeah, knowing the tracks probably 15, 20 years down the road, and not knowing, yeah, as far as the amount of commercial that would be needed in that area, I would be fine with that parcel over by the marina. So I just wanted to correct from my previous statement. But thank you. I mean, this looks great. You guys have been wonderful partners in this project, and so looking forward to it.
Appreciate that.
The comment I have on this, if you go back to the map, what shows the homes right there, in the corner where our Public Works, this is more directed to the city. I'd like to make sure we coordinate so we clean up the chain link and razor wire so that we become part of that community instead of a corner where the road bends, and we've got our pump station for our water. So I'd like to make sure we're in conjunction with cleaning that up with this project.
So we're partnering with them.
We're partnering with them.
I like that.
So that's more city than you guys.
We appreciate that.
We don't want to be the unsightly neighbor. Too bad.
Yes.
He left.
I just had one, oh, sorry.
We'll upgrade his wardrobe from the typical T-shirt, sleeveless T-shirt he wears.
Okay.
I just had one quick question on the plan. I know it's in here because I'm trying to scroll through and find it, but the buildings that are backing onto the right-of-way there, I know that the brown ones are the apartments, but on the south side, what?
So those are
Form factor.
those are our front-loaded townhomes. So what backs is our rear yard, and we would have a fence along that corridor.
Okay. I'm just thinking, 20 years down the road, if it does redevelop, it's probably easier to redevelop over something like that than the apartments per se, but, okay, thanks.
Okay. Perfect. You guys good? Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Okay, does council have any quick agenda items they want to review, or are we ready to start the policy meeting? Okay. I will call the City of Saratoga Springs policy meeting to order on Tuesday, March 27th, 2018 at 6:50 p.m. First on the agenda, not even to the agenda yet. Roll call tonight. Councilwoman Barch is excused, Councilman Porter's here, myself, Councilman Comber, Councilman Wilden, and Councilman Podeska. We do have a quorum. Councilman Wilden, will you lead us in our invocation? And Councilman Podeska, will you lead us in our pledge? Yep.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful that we're able to be gathered here together this evening and evaluate things for the betterment of our city, community, and neighbors and residents. And we ask Thee to bless us that we'll be able to make good decisions and have discourse that will help us lead us to those decisions that will be the betterment for all those living within the boundaries of our city. And these things we say in the name of Thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, public input. Time has been set aside for the public to express ideas, concerns, and comments. Please be respectful in your comments. Please try to avoid repetitive comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And if you're here for public comment, please state your name and address for the record. Is anybody here for public input at this time? Okay, seeing none, I will close the public input and we'll go on to reports. Does the council have any reports this week? Okay, Councilman Podeska?
Yeah, was it this week or last week? We had our first meeting for the design of the police station courthouse. So we're kicking that off. The architect will come back, I think it's about 3 weeks, with some concepts that he wants all of us to review. And so that's moving forward. And then a few weeks back, I just want to give a shout out to Sage Hill 6th grade. They did a presentation for a class they had to do, kind of a for and against some sort of issue within our state, and so they chose to do the island project. And so it's fun to hear the students that were initially for the project, and then as they did research, they're against, and then there's some that were against. When they did research, they were for. And so it's just kind of fun to see that debate take place between the two. They split the grade in half, and they had presentations between the two. And so me and Representative Moss were invited to that, and yeah, it was well received, and glad to see 6th graders using their head wisely.
Anybody else with council reports?
I just had one. It was a couple of years ago, the council authorized a partnership with the Harvest Hills HOA to put in a bridge over the canal. I don't know if,
I remember that.
yeah, it's been a couple of years, but they finally got all the ducks in a row, being like the canal and stuff, so it's looking to be installed this spring. They are interested if other city dignitaries would like to go when they have that. It was a partnership with the city, so.
Perfect.
You just keep us informed.
Yep.
I just want to thank our Civic Events Committee for putting on a great spring festival and the Easter egg hunt. I think some of the rough counts were between 3,500 and 4,000 children. That's fantastic. My counts put it about that when I was doing my rough counts. And the joke is that because I'm so detail-oriented sometimes that I even timed how long it took the 9 to 12-year-olds to collect their eggs in their section. It was like 26 to 28 seconds. It was quite impressive of an effort there. I imagine how clean the city would be if we had, if all garbage was as appealing as an Easter egg. But yeah, no, it was a great event. The Westlake Soccer did the breakfast. It was yummy, and they had a lot of success. And I just love us partnering with the school and the community, and just having these types of events. It just really says a lot about the community in which we live. And so if you can make sure, David, that you pass that on to the committee, thank you.
Okay, I had the dumpsters for the spring cleanup. What are the dates for those?
Advertise this for sure.
May 14th? Okay. And you'll get that out into the various neighborhood pages and...
Just on that topic, since the mayor brought it up, I know it's too late to do anything about it this year, but I would like to have a discussion again about passes. I've reached out to the community and received pretty substantial interest in doing the dump passes, at least on maybe an alternating basis or something. But I'd like to at least have a conversation with the council before we do it next year.
Okay. In the past with the dump passes, we had talked about maybe a dumpster that was for like the metals and recyclables. Is that something that'll be there? I know Republic had made mention at one point that we're kind of throwing a lot of stuff that could have gone elsewhere. I guess my concern is we're paying $32 a ton to dump it, where we could scrap metal to help offset the cost of this to the residents. So, okay, perfect. And then I wanted to bring up the Planning Commission seats. We've received some great applications for the Planning Commission. I think we're 7 now. Councilman McComber's gone through them. Commissioner Kirk Wilkins has also been going through them with me. Great applicants this time. But it was brought up in our city code. We have code that says we have a 5 planning commission with 2 alternates, and we have a 7 planning commission. So as a council, we need to decide, are we going to be a 5 or a 7, so that as we appoint these 2, are we appointing them as alternates or as commission members?
I thought we said we were 7 now.
But we've got code that needs to be clarified.
Yeah, it really is up to the council to decide. The proper place for that would be Title III. It's not really a Title 19 issue, it's more an administration issue. So right now, the way it stands is the law that, my interpretation of how to resolve that conflict, it should be a 5-member planning commission. But like I said, that's easily changed. And we're actually planning on, we addressed it with the Planning Commission as well, and they said, yes, get it fixed.
Does that mean we require to have 4 then? Would that mean that we would then have to have 4 present to be a quorum?
You can, so a quorum is just defined however you want.
Okay,
really.
so we make sure, let's take that into consideration.
Say a quorum is 3, a quorum is 4. The problem with it, right now the way it's worded is a quorum is 4. So that's a little bit of an issue when it says a majority is required to pass or to send a recommendation to the council. So usually it's better to have an odd number for a quorum. That way a majority is always more than half. I
I would hope out of 7, they could have at least 5 show up.
There's always the issue of, what do you do when there's 2 votes for and 2 votes against? It's just a lot cleaner if it's an odd number, but.
I didn't know if you minded if I commented, just because I've been at the city for
great.
so long. So in previous years, we did have 5 with 2 alternates, and then we had fabulous attendance, and so then we had 2 people that couldn't vote, and then we switched, we must have only switched in the bylaws and not in the code, to 7. And so from a staff perspective, if we're going to keep it at 7, it is nice that those 2 alternates can vote, rather than rather than having 2 members that attend that don't get a vote. That's just my perspective, having observed the Planning Commission as my time here.
Alternates don't need to attend either. It's really up to the council and the Planning Commission to make that decision. Alternates could just be there in case there's an absence. So you always have 5 in attendance. Just a thought.
For me, when you're getting 7 good applicants, spots, it seems about the 7. To me, typically you drop it because there's a concern of getting enough people there.
And these people were, seriously, some of these credentials, huh? We were
Yeah,
just like,
they were great. So it sounds like the council wants to go with 7. So before we make appointments, can we get the code fixed? It can be done on the same night as we make appointments, but.
That's an easier fix because it's in Title III, so
Okay.
that wouldn't require a public hearing.
Perfect.
But we would need, I think we need to look through the bylaws as well and make sure that those are consistent. So
We make sure everything's consistent so that when I bring names for the commission forward, we can approve everything prior to appointments.
yeah, we have it on track for at least council consideration at the very next meeting, which is April 17th.
Okay.
And if there's any action needed by the Planning Commission, we'll have it scheduled for April 12th. So
Okay.
it'll
And
happen one after another.
this was out, and so at the caucus meetings the other night, a comment was made with some residents asking, kind of dynasty issues. If you have a planning commissioner that's on their 4th, 5th term, do we have, they can't be appointed for more than 2 terms? So that we're getting fresh blood in there, people can vote us out and get new ideas, but you could still have
I would say no more than 2 consecutive.
2 consecutive terms.
Right.
While we're drafting this, I don't know if that's something the council wants to consider, just so that we're allowing more residents to serve and more residents to bring ideas. And
I've always been a proponent of term limits at all levels of government, so I would be fine. And with the consecutive, that allows them, if they want to come back after taking a
1 year
break. So
And if we're hard up, we can always just change our bylaws again. So.
that's true.
I would hope out of
Like we make
30,000
the
people,
rules, so it's like whatever.
because the applicants we're getting are great. Like I said, Councilman Conver's been through them. I don't think out of the 7 we had any that were,
they were all valid applicants.
yeah, and would add a great amount to the city. But like that was brought up at the thing, just, if you have a legacy person who's there 25 years and gets a retirement from it, for whatever that's worth, from Planning Commission, is that healthy for the city?
At the same time, we don't have to reappoint people too. So
We don't, but
yeah.
if
I can see that.
if it's just standard,
It could make an awkward conversation.
so is the council okay if we have Kevin as part of this, put in 2 consecutive terms and a break, then they
So
can be
that's 8
reappointed?
years then?
That would be 8 years.
Yeah.
But for me, it's a 4-year term.
Is it 4 or 3?
They're 4s.
They're 4?
It depends on which vacancy they're filling. So for example, with Brianna leaving, I don't remember what the remainder of her term would be. So it's possible it could be less than 4, it could
Like
be
3.5 years.
1 to 4, depending
Two
on,
full
What
terms?
is the standard term?
a full term would be 4 years.
Just say 2 full terms?
2
2 consecutive full
full
terms?
Yeah. Well, and then.
So if they come in and-
Take a break, I don't think we need to force them into a 4-year break.
No, just a year. Or, yeah.
Yeah, a 1-year hiatus.
Okay.
Don't even put anything. Not consecutive, you can even do 6 months if an opening comes up and they want to apply and they get.
Okay, that's true. So could you draft some language, Kevin, with that?
Can I?
There's probably something in there, but I'll just make sure it's all consistent.
Okay.
As far as actual term limits, we'll need to add that, so.
A follow,
Yeah.
like you were talking about quorum requirements on there. I mean, if you have 7, what's your suggestion? I know 4 is strange. The thing that I don't like about 5 is that you kind of need a super majority almost. I don't know. I don't know.
What do you mean as far as the voting?
Yeah.
Well, what it says right now, so a quorum is what's needed to hold a meeting.
Yep.
And so right now, under the bylaws and Title 19, 4 planning commissioners make up a quorum. The problem when you get the 4 commissioners here, and as the bylaws also say a majority is required, then you've got 2 and 2. So it just sets it up for a very awkward situation. So it
So
makes,
we could set the
more
quorum at
sense.
3, but it's still a majority vote, no matter what. They don't have to get to 5 for it to be a approval.
Or this comes forward to the city council as a split.
Yeah.
It's just more scrutiny for like, oh, what's this one about?
Yeah, that's true.
Look at it more closely.
Going down to 3 is kind of weird, and 5,
With a 7-member council, I see,
I'd say
yeah.
keep it at 4, and then it becomes a split decision.
Yeah,
How
that's fine.
have we had a quorum of less than 5?
I don't know, we usually have 5 here, though.
Quite often?
I mean, we've had 4 here.
we've gotten split votes recently.
But again, it just, they're not a decision-making body anyway, so split vote.
It's just a recommendation.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
at least let us know that there's lots to look at.
Are they different than us, where if we have a quorum of 3 in some cases, if it's a 2-to-1 vote, it doesn't pass, because you always have to have 3 vote for it, or is that just determined?
Whatever, yeah, however you determine it.
okay.
So that rule is specified by state law for the council, not for the planning commission.
Okay.
Okay.
Unless they're the final authority. I mean, there are some decisions.
Right.
So Kevin, you'll bring us back language to
Clean up all
cleaned
that.
up, so a 7 voting member commission
Yeah,
with no more than 2 consecutive full terms without a break. So you'll check all that, so we have it ready for the next meeting.
yep.
Perfect.
We'll resolve any conflicts. I think Mark actually brought up a good point. Sometimes the planning commission is the land use authority. And in those cases, we probably need to say 3 votes is required, at least 3 votes is required. When they're a decision-making body.
Okay, yeah, if you'll have that all drafted up, that would be great.
Yeah, happy to.
Thank you, and thank you, Mark, for letting me pick your brain last week on this.
Thanks, Mark, for being right.
Okay. Mark, is there anything else from city administration?
At this time, I think we're good, thanks.
Okay. Business items, the Fairway Townhome Site Plan and Preliminary Plat.
So do we have the clicker, or Dave, are you just being the clicker? Okay.
He's the clicker.
So as you would recall, at a previous meeting, you reviewed and discussed the Fairway Townhomes, a little bit, just the background information. It's zoned M10. They're proposing 55 units, which is within the allowable density once you take out the sensitive lands. Keep going, please. This is general plan and the zoning both have it as multifamily. This is the basic layout that you reviewed before. So the architecture was really the stumbling point. And rather than take action on the item, what you did is you continued it and allowed the applicant some time to address the architecture. And specifically, it had to do with sloped roofs. And I included in your packet, and go a couple more. This is what was proposed. This is what is now proposed. So those roofs they're basically shed roofs, and they're 2 and 12. And then if you go to the next one, The next one's a roof plan, which shows that the 2 and 12 are all the kind of hatch thing. It would be a standing seam metal in a gray that would match all of the various color schemes that they're proposing. And then in the middle is basically flat, but not exactly flat, so that it would meet the objective of adequate drainage. Right. So again, this is the code says, talking about sloped roofs providing articulation and variation. Flat roofs shall be screened with parapets. Flat roofs with 0 pitch are not permitted for 2, 3, or multifamily dwellings. So that was the part that we had some discussion on. Was this a flat roof or was this a pitched roof? And I went through and dug up some definitions of slope and pitch and those kinds of things, none of which were really conclusive, but they gave you an idea of what some folks were thinking. So now it's back to the city council, and this is what the current proposal is from the developer. And as a condition of approval, I added a condition that we verify that the building heights with these sloped roofs continue to meet the maximum building height as outlined in the code. So I've given you some conditions of approval and findings to make.
Do we need to add a condition? Not listed there on the screen.
Okay, should be. Yeah, we do.
Okay. Add a condition.
Add a condition to verify that the building heights are within the maximum allowable in the zone. Because I don't have all of the elevations, I just have that one. So I'd need to check that for each building.
You guys had a good discussion on this.
Just one question. I mean, is the right mayor?
Yeah?
Just on the new graphic it was provided, I think it's a little bit more rendering. I just wanted to clarify the style. It looks like on my screen, and correct me if I'm wrong, looks like cinder block.
The materials on the building?
Yeah, if you zoom in where the guy's standing and drinking something,
First floor.
The siding materials haven't changed, so they continue to believe, there is some ephes, there is some,
my question is it?
You're looking at this material right under here that looks like it's block.
If you see that top left picture, it probably shows the best if you can zoom in.
Let's see. I just want to clarify that that's not going to have the appearance of cinder block.
This looks like cinder block. I doubt it.
no, it's not, and I had that materials board last time, I didn't bring it this time.
It looks like.
Yeah, just looking closer, I'm like, oh.
It's not cinder block.
So, yeah.
It'll
It's
look better than cinder block.
a hardy board product.
Okay. Just the picture doesn't do it justice, so. And the only other thing is, I think at this point, from my standpoint, you've met the code requirements and what we asked you to do, so.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we approve Fairway Townhomes site plan and preliminary plat as listed on the agenda, with all staff findings and conditions, adding a condition that staff verify that the building heights are all within the allowable limit for the zone.
I have a first from Councilman Porter. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second, Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion?
Still want to make sure that they are going to be reaching out to the HOA, but not for my vote right now. I'm not determining it based
Okay.
on my vote here.
And I did clarify that in your staff report, that section of the HOA refers to the first phases, which were single-family phases, and it discusses the fact that other phases may annex in or be addenda, and we don't have, I have been unable to find any multifamily design guidelines in there.
Because there wasn't back then. So,
We'll do a roll call. Podeska? Aye. Wilden?
Aye.
McComber?
aye.
Porter?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, University of Utah Medical Center.
Okay. University of Utah Medical Center. You generally all know where this is. There was a community plan that was approved already, as well as the first village plan, and that was done, the community plan was approved on April 18th, which should be last year, 2017, and at the same time, a village plan for the first parcel was approved. So now they are coming in with the other parcel. The community plan only anticipated 2 parcels, so this is the second one. The size is similar. The entitlements are similar. They would be proposing, you want to go to the next? They're proposing the same. This is the same building height that is in the community plan and in village plan 1. The gross lot area is 13.06 acres. The maximum ERUs is 90, and they're proposing 69.5. And that's residential unit equivalents. That's not the connections. That's a whole different calculation. And then a maximum of 100. A maximum of 150 square feet. 150,000 square feet, I'm sorry. 150 square feet, little tiny office. And the design guidelines and the landscaping would all be called out as in the community plan and as in village plan 1. The Planning Commission took action on this at their last meeting, and we did a little report of action. There was some discussion about window signs and how one of the planning commissioners was uncomfortable going into buildings when she couldn't see inside. And that was just a comment that she mentioned to University of Utah. There was no condition of approval or anything like that about that. She just expressed that concern. And as you know, because this is a state facility, our review authority is fairly limited, but we're pleased with the products that they are bringing forward.
Okay. Comments from the council?
I'm excited for this. Hopefully we can just get this moving along, and if this is anything like what we've seen at their other facilities around the state, I'm very excited for this. Really is going to be turning out to be just a really great medical focused area for North Utah County. It's going to really be, I think it's going to become one of the poster childs, if you would, of future ideas and direction, not just in the state of Utah, but around the country, is a great opportunity to work together. We don't have to always be in competition. We can be near each other and support each other and work together with IHC and University of Utah. So I'm excited to see this come to the city.
I think the thinking may be that, and certainly the applicant can address this, but they may actually build on this parcel first to provide a clinic of some sort that may be a little smaller than what they were, at least initially, and then look to expand and build on the other parcel.
Well, as we grow, they grow, right?
Exactly.
So I think they'll be surprised. Everyone who comes to Saratoga Springs is surprised. Costa Vida was surprised that it was the #1 grand opening of any Costa Vida in the history of Costa Vida was in Saratoga Springs, Utah. So I think everyone gets a little bit like, whoa, there are thousands and thousands of people living out here who need various services. So very excited for it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments from the council?
Yeah, I know it's probably still in concept plan, but as far as the elevations are concerned, is it going to be similar to that picture on the Village Plan 2 cover?
We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but
I just want to mention I love that design.
Okay.
And so I think it looks great. I like the layout of it being next to Pioneer Crossing, so it's not driving by and having fields of parking lots. And so I think it's a beautiful building, and so to have that as kind of eye candy as you're driving by is great. So I'm excited about the project too. I just wanted to mention the design. Yeah. Anyway.
Cindy, could you make sure that eye candy in reference to the U is in the minutes? Also, I've requested
As
that the
in
U
you?
get about 6 times larger on the whole side of the building, so.
Oh, you want to do a side variance for that?
All for it.
Yeah.
How do we
They don't.
impeach you? Quick question, shovels in the ground, when do you anticipate? I want to steal it from you.
My name's John Bates, I'm the executive. We're actually going to move on this parcel first, plan to do 15 to 25,000 square feet. We're actually in design now, and we would like to have shovels in the ground before the end of the calendar year. And then we have plans for the previous parcel for the larger facility like what you see in Daybreak or Farmington, maybe 2 years after that.
Perfect. We look forward to having you in the community.
Absolutely. We look forward to being here and believe me, we anticipate a great clientele at this location. We see a bright future here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
you will see a preliminary plat application come through. The Planning Commission will review it April 12th, and then I think you see it on the 17th.
Okay. I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the University of Utah Medical Center Village Plan 2, ordinance 18-7, dated today.
I'll second that. Oh, sorry.
With all staff findings and conditions.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman Wildman, a very anxious second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion?
There was the findings.
Okay, roll call. Porter?
Aye.
Podesta?
Aye.
Wildman?
Aye.
McComber?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Mount Saratoga, the Ridge Plat A preliminary plat.
So this is, there's two, you're looking at two tonight. So the first one, sorry. The first one is within the ridge, and it's Plat A. So if you could go to the next slide. This is the Mount Saratoga development, and then the ridge is in red there. If you could go to the next one. And then here's an aerial photo, and we just changed directions, you know, north is now at the top. So at the west end of Talus Ridge Boulevard is the phase that we're looking at. If you could go to the next slide. So then here it is again, and then, sorry, we're going to keep changing directions with these slides just because of the graphics I'm working with. So north is pointing to the side of the page. Anyhow, you can see the extension of Talus Ridge Boulevard, and that was another plat. The plat that we're looking at is the lots, and then the open space, which is a large detention basin and some native areas. And then if you could go to the next slide. This is the open space and amenities points calculations that we've been looking at with the applicant. So what we're seeing here is some trails and some native areas and improved areas, and then they're also getting credit for some trails in a separate plat, which is the gray area, and that's along the road, the Talus Ridge Boulevard Road, and there will be some trails that they're getting credit for also. If you could go to the next slide. And then these are slides of the landscaped area. Most of it's native and some trails. And then if you could go to the next slide and the next one. And then staff recommends approval with the conditions in the staff report.
Okay, we'll start with comments. Anybody really anxious? Councilman?
Straightforward to me.
Okay. The only question I had was one that had been brought up a few times with the Talus Ridge development below. Seeing about something as you increase traffic on the main drive with the mailboxes that are currently facing on the road. There's some concerns with kids and traffic blocking the road.
And
Building it out or
my
something.
understanding that those have been moved. Is that correct? That they've been moved off of Talus? Oh, they haven't? Never mind.
You guys
Okay.
want to come up in case
We
we
have
questions?
added it to our code that,
As you should.
But that's been asked, I don't know if you guys are willing to, or it's not a requirement of this one.
Well, we have added a section in our code that doesn't let it be on collector roads, so you.
I appreciate, I saw that in this, going forward, that's been addressed, and I appreciate that. I just.
There's some concerns as we add more traffic for the neighborhood above, that your
Yeah, it's
existing
only gonna get
neighborhood's going to have ongoing problems with their mailbox.
Sure, yeah. So Brandon Watson with Edge Homes, appreciate it. Yeah, I know that was brought to our attention before, that obviously it's kind of a safety concern there as people are crossing the road or heading the wrong direction or parking in the middle median that way. So I know on the Ridge Plat A, you know, we proposed that on the interior side of our subdivision there. Last thing we want to do is have that out on the collector road, as we've obviously learned from our mistake previously. So that'll be, I think that's a condition of our approval, that we show where those mailboxes are going, which is going to go down by, there's a trail access to the detention area. So it'll go down there where it's kind of a little more
Within the neighborhood.
subdivision, yeah, so.
Yeah, I saw that on the site plan.
Any other? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve Mount Saratoga, the Ridge Plat A preliminary plat, Edge Homes applicant, 1300 West, Palace Ridge Boulevard with staff findings and conditions.
Second. First from Councilman Wilden, a second from Councilman Porter. Any further discussion on the motion?
I just want to point out that the reason why these go smoothly is because you know what's expected, you know the code, and you did it correctly. We don't have to have long debates. So I really do appreciate that, and I want to be recognized, and we appreciate Edge Homes following our code and coming forward with good product. Thank you.
I will do a roll call. Podeska.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Mount Saratoga, Quail Hill. I'm looking at Ridge going, it's a different one.
It is. So, this map here indicates what Quail Hill is. The red indicates the boundaries of Quail Hill, and then we're just looking at one phase within this development. So if you could go to the next slide. So, and then, so as you head west on Pony Express Boulevard, you'll see lots of construction going on, big, huge equipment cutting in roads. So this development, as far as the roads go, are underway, and utilities have been put in the ground, and then this will be their first plat in this particular development. So here it is, and then their open space is outside of these plat boundaries in road and open space plats that have already been approved. So if you could go to the next slide. So this, oh, sorry, I put in the wrong one. I put in the one from the previous phase. Anyhow, there's a graphic just like that for this particular phase in your staff report. And then here's the open space plans themselves. So you'll see a large detention area as you enter the development, which will be a nice green area for the entrance. And then there'll be landscaping along Mount Saratoga Boulevard. And then if you could go to the next slide. The sign, they do want to propose some changes to the sign that will require an amendment to either their community plan or their village plan. They want to change the design. This particular one, it doesn't match the size in the community plan, but it does match the design. However, you'll probably be seeing amendments to request changes to those. And then staff recommends approval with the conditions in the staff report.
Okay. Mark.
Just on a side note, we've been discussing with the applicant, making sure that they've got their open space requirements completely met. And again, I'm going a little bit off track, but I want to make sure that you're comfortable with the direction that we're going. They're looking to, once these plats are approved by you, get final, record, and start moving forward. There's a little bit of a challenge that we believe can be handled at the staff level, but I just want you to be aware that we believe it's a staff level amendment that can take place, and it's going to be working with the applicant to make sure that we get the open space balance right, so that they've got adequate open space to meet the needs, but at the same time gives them a little bit of flexibility to move forward, get their plats recorded, and then get everything, you know, caught up and recorded as we move forward. So again, we don't have to bring you the amendment because we believe it can be a staff level of approval.
A minor amendment.
It could be a minor amendment that can be handled at the staff level, but we do feel like there's some tweaks that need to be made to clarify, to make sure that everything is righteous. Again, It's a good application, it's a good project, we want to make sure that it moves forward appropriately, but I just wanted to brief you kind of in totality of these two applications so that you're aware that we'll be working on that amendment, and if there's any questions, we just don't want to have to wait until mid-April to bring something back to you that would allow them to move forward.
I'm okay with that. I've heard other comments to the same. I think that Edge has performed well in our city and has always lived up to their commitments, so I think that they've earned a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
Well, and we want to make sure that we follow the intent of what's approved in the community plans and the village plans. However, there's some ambiguity that we feel like can be a minor amendment, which would clarify that, which would give them the flexibility to roll forward, keeping the project on target. But then at the same time, I just wanted to make sure that we were very open with you about that.
Thank you. I just had to piggyback on Councilman McComber's comment earlier. You know, I like this table where everything says complies, and it's very, very, and to staff, I really like the table. You know, it makes it a lot easier than, you know, in the past we've had like all the paragraphs and you bold complies and stuff, but this is a much easier, I can just go down that one column and be like, everything complies.
I liked it too.
So, keep doing that.
Councilman Wilden?
Just speaking of the complies, there's one item in here that says can comply, subject to lot and other phases, bringing up the average. You know, and I'm not trying to be a stickler here. It's 4,700, we're at 4,607. And that just seems like something staff, you'll like monitor to make sure.
Right, for sure.
And so next time something comes in, I'd like us to like circle back around to this, to make sure just from a governance perspective, council perspective, sorry, I went to work for a minute. From a council perspective, we could say we did our due diligence and we're at the right level of what we agreed to in the.
Are you asking an action item?
Yes, and they have larger lots proposed in other phases within this village plan. So in the community plan, the average is higher. So the overall is meeting that number.
I just want you to close the loop.
Sure, will do.
Perfect. Councilman McComber, you had a comment?
Yeah, and now I'm trying to remember it. No, I can't remember. I'm not feeling well enough.
Entertain a motion.
I move that we approve Mount Saratoga Quail Hill Plat A, preliminary plat, Edge Homes applicant, with the findings and conditions contained in the staff report, and also directing staff to bring back a report on the compliance of the lot size next time that we see this development.
Okay, I have first from Councilman Porter, second from Councilman McComber. Any further discussion on the motion?
I remembered the sign. As long as we're within all of our code, I have no problem with them making changes. I know you just talked about them bringing that. I think that we were happy to work with them as long as they're within our sign ordinance. So thank you.
Are you okay with that if it's within our ordinance, it's a staff level?
I would actually be okay with that. But.
What does the community plan and village plan say? Is it a major amendment?
Well, they have theming that they have to stick to, and the sign is part of the theming, so I don't, and then a development standard is a council approval, so if it's larger than what's in the code, then it would be a development standard. If they're proposing something that's within the code, I think that could be a staff level approval because it wouldn't be a development standard.
Yeah.
As long as, if you would like to delegate that, we leave that to your discretion.
I'll amend my motion to delegate the approval of the sign to staff.
And I'll amend my second so that it meets the design standards of the neighborhood and work through with them to make sure that all of the intent and spirit of the community plan is being met, but leave that for you. So I amend my second.
Okay, I've amended first, amended second. Any further discussion? Okay, Councilman Porter.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Motion
See, I knew it was
unanimously.
important.
Thank you, yeah, appreciate it. Thank you guys very much.
Okay, thank you.
So I made it a little messy. I made it a little messy, but at least I remember.
Okay. Award of the bid to Geneva Rock. This has been a long time coming for the Dalmore Meadows Sidewalk Project and cooperative agreement with UDOT for reimbursement to the city for the sidewalk. Does the council have any questions on this? I know Jeremy's talked with us about this a bunch.
I have no
questions. It should be pretty self-explanatory. We appreciate UDOT being willing to increase the reimbursement amount to match the bid, because we're seeing construction prices, especially for small little things like this, are going up. So UDOT was gracious enough to come back and say, you know, they added it. So you'll see this includes the award of contract and the cooperative agreement with UDOT, which was to reimburse us
Okay.
that cost. So if you
I'll
have any
entertain a
questions,
motion.
happy to answer them.
I just want to say, this is the longest packet I've ever seen for a sidewalk. 129 pages.
Yes.
I gave up after page
I can see why UDOT
108.
wants us to deal with it, because their paperwork was 3 pages.
Okay. I'll entertain a
Mayor, I
motion
just
to
had
get
a
this
a
done.
question.
Oh,
Yeah. So Jeremy, on this, with this project, I know there's already existing crosswalk going across the continuous flow. Are there safety there are safety concerns with that crosswalk? As far as cars stopping for that crosswalk when people are trying to get to
One
the,
at Redwood Road and Pioneer Crossing?
yeah.
Okay. I can bring that up to UDOT. I hadn't heard of those concerns previously, but they're concerned that the cars are not stopping at the red light, or?
Well, no, because that's continuous flow, and they have to cross that
Oh, you're
continuous
saying in
flow
the
to get to that stoplight.
it's a continuous right-hand turn.
Oh, the free flow, the right-hand.
Yeah. And so so pedestrians are trying to cross that street,
Right.
and with, current drivers, they're not even knowing that there's gonna be pedestrians once that sidewalk's in.
I'll bring that up to UDOT. I don't know if they have a standard practice, because I can,
Signage and,
makes sense.
Yeah.
Signage or flashing signage to make it more aware. So drivers obviously are supposed to yield to pedestrians, but
Yeah.
as we know, they don't always pay attention, so.
okay.
I will bring it up to UDOT and see if they can do some things to enhance that awareness of drivers.
Thanks.
Especially since they'll be in there making a whole bunch of changes.
Right.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move that we approve business item number 5, resolution R18-18 dated today.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman
second.
Wilden. I have a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion?
Do we have to say the amount?
It's in the,
It's in
Yeah.
the motion, okay.
Okay.
I can say it if it makes you feel better.
No.
because it doesn't always have the amount in here.
Okay, Porter,
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Resolution of the City Council of the City of Saratoga Springs, Utah, expressing the intent to adjust the municipal boundary with Lehigh City, Utah. This is part of the ongoing discussions we've had. Any questions from the council on this?
Only that this is as the request from the landowner, so just continuing the process.
Perfect. Then I will entertain a motion.
I move that we approve resolution R18-19 dated today, the adjusting the municipal boundary with Lehigh City.
Okay, I have a first from Councilman McComber. I have a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion? The attorney's like feeling like
I'm
he
going to
missed
cut
out.
Kevin off because I know what he's going to say. We're not actually adjusting the boundary, we're just declaring our intent to.
Intent to adjust the
Yes,
municipal.
so now we're going to do the public notice, and the final ordinance will be 3 or 4 weeks from now.
Perfect.
I tried to cut him off.
Okay. He was anxious to talk.
I know.
Okay. Roll call. Porter.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
Podeska.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
I move that we approve the March 6th, 2018 minutes.
I have a first from Councilman Porter.
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Podeska. Any further discussion on the motion? Podeska.
Aye.
Wilden.
Aye.
McComber.
Aye.
Porter.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Do we have need for closed session?
Said you wanted my note.
Okay, then I will adjourn the meeting.